Hey everybody, lots to talk about steering clutches on the channel lately. We were kind of in that mode, so this is typical between project phases cleanup. So we're processing through some of the other steering clutch units that we've had around here, as long as we're on the topic and all the tools are out and at hand. And you know, I've talked a lot about how these steering clutch compartments can really build condensation on D2s. It's said a lot. This is, well, the second steering clutch that I'm tearing down out of the 5U parts rear end. Let's see if I got that tag over here yet. Yeah, 5U 3248. So that's one that had been sitting for a long time, and these clutches never would have loosened up on their own. In fact, look at what's left of the external teeth, just nubs. Most of that stuff has just turned into powder and disappeared. So yeah, that's that's just, it's never going to be a good clutch again. You'd have never got that to loosen up without disassembly. Steels are horrid. So, and then just look at just the rust that's in everything. We're just prying these discs off, hoping we can find like a good center hub. Let's keep going. Yeah, these steels are so stuck around the center. You literally have to get in here and pry them up. Like I said, you would have never freed this up in the machine. There's no way you'd have got all these to break loose again. We're getting this one. Knock all the loose rust off, and then the frictions come out pretty easy. They're kind of a treat, but yeah, you can see there's nothing even left to try and save of this. You know, the center core is gone, the disc is gone, the friction material is just nasty. Yeah, that's why I uploaded a video, oh man, way back this last spring about that narrow gauge RD6 that I have out here. It sits quite a lot because it doesn't run. It's got that bent rod on #1 cylinder, and it's just another one sitting in the queue just waiting for me to get to it. And that's why here, I'll pop a link up there. You can go back and relive that whole adventure. But that's why, you know, I roll that thing over once or twice a year, and I'll tie the steering clutch levers back and put it in gear, lock the brakes, roll the engine, and that, you know, slips all these steering clutch discs in that machine and keeps everything loose, keeps it from sticking. You know, it seems like it's kind of a lot of messing around at the time, but you need to exercise these things. You need to prevent something like this from happening to begin with, because, well, as you witnessed in the prior 1113 video, it's not exactly cheap to replace all these steering clutch discs, you know. So if you got a D2 that sits a lot, just hook onto it with something, drag it around from time to time. Exercise those clutches, exercise the brakes. Just keep things spinning, keep things turning. Kind of helps to prevent some of this stuff from happening. So it's an hour or two later. The bench is looking a lot better than it was, and I've processed everything I had in here. This was the last of the clutch units that I still had together. So Here's the dumpster pile. These old frictions, they're just getting thrown straight away. Here's the scrap pile. These old steels are all shot. We had one center hub that was beyond saving. I had to split one of the slotted nuts. Oops. And we also have one trashed pin. We had one bad bearing cage. A bearing had went out in that and heaved a lot of that center portion out. Of course, neither one of the bearings were any good at all. So that's all scrap pile stuff there. We did salvage, well, we got one good slotted nut. I can throw that in there. We have two center hubs that are marginal, but considering what part supply might be in 10 years, they might look pretty good by then. 4 good pressure plates, a good yoke, 3 good bearing cages, and of course I got a couple cans. This is all springs and pins and brackets and catch cups and oil lines and actuator levers and bolts and related hardware. And then another can with the salvaged friction disc that came out of 1113. So that's pretty much, well, like I said, what we do between every project phase here on these D2s. As long as we were in the steering clutch stuff, we processed the last what we still had put together. So now we know what's bad, we know what's good, and it's been stored accordingly. So, and I know people ask a lot like, hey, what should I look for when assessing like a used crawler tractor? I know in the case of these old Caterpillars, steering clutch condition is a biggie, because as you saw in the prior 1113 build, we've got about $700 worth of new parts here, and that's just the clutch discs and the 2 new release bearings. Luckily, everything else there was still good. So, and of course, the amount of labor it takes to get down to that area of the machine to actually do any repairs, you're pretty much ripping the final drives off, and you're getting down to where we are with the back end right now. So if you look at a D2 or any old Cat and you pull on the steering levers and they're either really stiff and they don't want to move, or maybe they just flop like there's nothing back there, that usually means that the clutches were stiff enough that somebody pulled that lever, had resistance initially as it compressed all the springs and released the clutch, but then it was still too seized to actually spring back, and all that lever just flops like there's nothing behind it. If you have something like that, keep in mind that's a huge, huge expense to go and put all that stuff back right. As you've seen here, these clutches we took apart today are pretty typical for a D2 or any old Cat that has steering clutches that are stuck, and they even get worse than this. So just something to keep in mind. So, all right, that's what a rusty, bad, stuck steering clutch looks like in a Cat D2. Hope you guys enjoyed it. That's just something to watch for, be mindful of. Thanks for watching.